So for the past few months, I have been working on collecting data for this. Barnard's Loop, just man, the Boogeyman Nebula, this area of space, of course, you know, the Horsehead Nebula just next door, everything else is just amazing. It's like an astrophotographer's dream. But one thing I wanted to do was just kind of like get more data on this, and I'm still trying until the end of the year. But in the meantime, I decided to actually purchase some data through my Telescope Live account, and it's SHO data. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do my first SHO process right here on the channel. So my name is Chad. This is the Easy Astro Images channel. We are going to process some photons tonight. So what's happening, everybody? Hope you guys are all just doing awesome, and would be dropping this video on Friday, so maybe you have something to play with through the weekend. Now, my SHO process is probably not going to be different than a lot of stuff that you've seen, but it's going to be a combination of like everybody, because everybody's kind of throwing their own little spin at different processes, different techniques and stuff to get the actual data. And, you know, we're going to be doing that right here, right now. So what we got is from Telescope Live. This is, of course, their bad data set. I think it cost me about $15. So we've got some HA, some O3, and some S2. And all I have done on this so far, ran it through WBPP, it auto-cropped it, did all that kind of good stuff. I did a dynamic background extraction on each one of these images. So that's kind of where we're at. Just went through and plucked in things where there wasn't background that I could see and applied it to all three of those images. So it seems like the next thing that a lot of people do with SHO images is just try to equalize things right off the bat to just make your life easier. Part of processing these images is just trying to just keep things like your magenta, your green, to try to keep everything reined in. So what we're going to use first is the linear fit. And what this is going to do is just kind of equalize the brightness and the pixels and everything like that. And the consensus seems to be that people pick the sulfur channel because that's what's, you know, mapped to the actual red. Or you can just use your strongest signal if you want to. So I'm using S2 as the actual reference here. So we're going to just apply the linear fit to the oxygen, and then we're going to apply it as well to the H alpha, and then we will go on with the next step. So now that is all done, we can just go ahead right off the bat here and pull up the channel combination, and we can add all three of those images right into the channel combination, and go ahead and click the actual create image button here. Wrong one. I always get that mixed up. And now if we stretch this, you can see what we have. We've got this crazy looking green magenta typical SHO image right off the bat here, but it's not going to look like this for long. But man, I really just love the way it looks. Now, the first thing I want to do, just because I'm not used to looking at it this way, is actually fix the geometry here. So I'm going to do a horizontal mirror and a vertical mirror, and now we got the boogeyman and everything right down here ready to go. And from here on out, we're pretty much just going to start stretching this data. And to start it, we're going to be using the generalized hyperbolic stretch. We're going to use the process and the actual script itself. So what you want to do first here, I like to do this, and Polyman Astro kind of pointed me towards this on his video, is to get a good actual starting point. You need to be able to actually see what you're doing. So I want to go ahead and just kind of zoom in and click on this nebulosity right here, and then we'll send that value down here as our symmetry point. And then what we can do now is just go ahead and get rid of the stretch, and we can just start stretching this. We can open up our real-time preview and go ahead and move this out of the way. We're all ready to go, and we're just going to start stretching this over just like you would a normal histogram stretch, whatever. like to just kind of type them in. So an 8's a little too strong, a 7, and you just kind of want to get this to where you're, happy with your background and everything else like that. So, could look a little bit bright right there. Maybe we could try a 6. That's just not good enough. 6.5. Oh, 6.8. Yep, that looks pretty good right there. So we'll go ahead and apply that, and we will keep that as our first stretch. And then, of course, it's going to want to make things crazy. At this point, I'll go ahead and close this out, and then I'll switch over and actually use the script. I like using the script for the rest of the stuff because you can zoom in and all that kind of stuff on the image. So first thing we got to do is select the image, and it is image 17. So we'll select that. It's going to load it in. There we go. Now, we want to work our way, of course, from dimmest to brightest. So I want to go ahead and just select an area right here, and we'll just click right there, and we'll send that value to the SP and reset the zoom. And again, we can just start stretching this little by little. So put a 2 on that. That's a pretty good stretch, a little aggressive. Go to a 1, 1.7. Yeah, 1.7 looks pretty good. It's not going to take a lot to stretch this. You can see that we can really get to this pretty quickly, and it's building our S-curve around the symmetry point right there. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that as a stretch, and I'm kind of half tempted to like keep on going, but I think I'm actually going to leave it right here for a second, because I think like this is a good point to just start working on things to kind of see what we're actually dealing with here. So we can work on colors, we can take the stars out, and all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead first, and we'll run the script correct magenta stars, and that's just going to kind of take the magenta out of everything and kind of give us a little bit better of a view as far as what we're looking at. So there is our beautiful image. And then right now what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and get rid of the stars. So I kind of like what Steve does at the entering into space channel, is just get rid of the stars from this image and use the stars from a luminance layer and just use the color for that. So we'll see how that goes. So we'll just pull the stars out of this one here, and then of course we can go back into the HA, and that's where that will come from. All right, so we got our stars out of there, and then we can actually, if we want to, I like to just use Bill Blanchen's modified SCNR and move this over, and let's get our green under control and protect our luminance, and that is what we are left with right now. So we can either do some curves work, or we could do another stretch. What do we think we should do? I think we will go ahead and let's just stretch this data a little bit more. So we'll go back into the GHS script and select image 17. And reset the tool. We can maybe go ahead and click and bump up the saturation just a tad. Saturation's really big on this one, so you don't want to make like super crazy adjustments. So 0.8, 0.7 I think would be pretty good. So we'll go ahead and just apply a little bit of saturation to everything. And then we can go back in and reset that and back into RGB. And then what we can do is just zoom in here and just click our super bright bits and just give those a little bit of a stretch. Even though I would like to kind of bring out a little bit more of that background, but let's see here. Let's just do like a 0.5, and that pushed everything else down quite a bit. So let's actually reset that and undo that. And let's go, let's actually push the background up a tad and try to get a little bit more out of the image in general. There we go. Can we go a little bit higher? That's pretty high. 1.5. 1.4. All right, I'm good with that. I think that looks pretty good. And then what we can actually do, reset that there, and go ahead and get rid of that, is we can open up the histogram transformation now, and we can link to that and pull up a real-time preview. And what we can do is just kind of pull the black point a little bit and move everything back down just to kind of knock that down a little bit. And I mean, I'm not even at this point against like clipping some data to get what I want. So, you know, I don't like a super dark background. So we'll just go ahead and run that right there. And that is our image. Has a little bit of a blue cast to it. No big deal. We can fix that with like a dynamic background extraction if we wanted to. In fact, we can go ahead and do that right now. I don't want to like add a bunch of like crazy extra steps to everything, but you know, might as well. Let's go ahead and just get rid of that process because that was my old one. And we'll bring up the DBE and we'll just go ahead and change to samples. We'll just generate a few samples here, and that way we can just kind of move them around and place our own. So I'm just going to put these where there's like this blue and try to model that and take that out. Lower the background a little bit. So you see we got blue down in here, blue down in here, down in here, over here, and we can do that. So that should be pretty good. And then let's just go ahead and replace that. See what all this looks like. Okay, there's the whole blue purple that it took out of it, and that is what we were left with. Now we're back to fighting the green a little bit. So it's a constant battle when you are playing around with these SHO images. So what I'm going to do is just pull the green back ever so slightly. Don't mind that there's a little bit of green in there. Just kind of adds to the color depth and everything else. So that looks pretty good to me. And I guess while we're in here, we can just kind of pull up the saturation a little bit too if we wanted to. Just a little bit, just a hint. And then finally, let's just do a regular curves adjustment and brighten that up a little bit and just drop the background down a little bit. And that looks pretty good right there. So lots of crazy awesome color inside of this. It might be a little bit more towards the magenta side again, so we can actually run the correct magenta stars, and let's see where that leaves us. All right, perfect. I'm happy with that. We're not going to touch that anymore. So that is pretty much it for our color image. I think what we're going to do next is kind of blur it out a little bit and move on to creating all the detail in our luminance that we're going to put on top of this. So let's get to that right now. Is Steve's little trick is we're going to take our process here and just open up convolution, and we're going to grab this second slider here and move it all the way over and just blur and smooth out this entire color image. Because remember, we're going to take a luminance layer that's going to have blur exterminator and all that stuff on it, and that is what is going to give us our detail. So once you're happy with your color and everything else, you can go ahead and do this step. You know, SHO filters again are going to give you all these different results. You can see I got a little bit of green that I left in here, but overall, I'm pretty happy with the color. It's a striking comparison, of course, to this, that I'm working on with the one-shot color. So you can obviously see the difference in the two images that we're working on. We're nice and zoomed in on the boogeyman and all of his little extra features there. So let's move on to this HA luminance layer now and get to work on all that detail that we can bring out in this beautiful image. Alright, so the first thing we are going to do with this thing is we're going to change its identifier to Loom. And then, just so we're looking at the exact same thing here, we're going to rotate this thing around and make it look exactly like the other one. And then this image is not stretched or anything else yet. So since we're still in that linear state, what we can actually do is we can apply things like blur exterminator, noise exterminator, and that kind of stuff to it first if we wanted to. But that stuff works pretty well in the non-linear state too. So I think what we'll do is just go ahead and stretch this baby. So we'll go ahead and open up the generalized hyperbolic stretch again. And we're going to select Loom. And then we're going to basically just start moving this slider over like we did before. And we can get pretty aggressive with it because we don't have to worry about blowing out colors or stars. Can't get that aggressive with it though. And let's just move it down a little bit to where we think our histogram is probably going to be. And I'm actually not liking that a whole lot. Sometimes things just don't work that way, and I don't want to put a lot of work into that way. So let's see what the easy soft stretch will give us. So I think that looks pretty good. Let's just run the easy soft stretch on that for everybody to make things super easy. So there is our luminance on the easy soft stretch. So now the next thing that we'll do is we'll just fire up blur exterminator here, and we'll go ahead and just turn the sharpen non-stellar down because we don't want to like do anything like super crazy with that. Our stars in a pretty good they're a pretty good size and everything right now, so pretty happy with all those settings. And let's just run this real quick, and then once that is done, we will go ahead and take our stars out. So you can see we've got a completely blur exterminated image. And now let's go to star exterminator. And this time we are going to unscreen the stars and create a star image because these are the ones that we're going to pop back in. All right, we can close that out and we can just kind of put our stars away down here. And we can get to work on the rest of this image. Looking pretty good so far, but we got a lot more to go. Now it's going to be a time for a nice dose of noise exterminator, and I'm going to pull that down to about 80. I like to leave a little bit of grain and pull the detail up to maybe about 30. And this is where we'll get some really cool additions to all of the stellar stuff that's inside there. That cleaned all that up. We got a nice, beautiful, smooth image going on. Loving the way that looks. Now we're going to just do a simple curves transformation on this and kind of bring it to life since we were a little lazy on our stretching. And you will see the details just start to pop like crazy in this. We'll just pull up the highlights a little bit, bring that background down a little bit, and just look at all of that freaking detail, man. It just all pops right back in there. It is super awesome. So we'll go ahead and just apply that, get rid of that, and now we are pretty much ready to just go ahead and combine these two. So let's go ahead to LRGB combination, and we want to make sure that we have the color image selected, and LRGB combination is right here, and we're going to turn all of that off. And what we actually want is Loom, and we'll turn on chrominance noise reduction, and we'll apply global here. This will take just a couple seconds to run. And boom, I mean, look at that, man. Does that not just look awesome or what? I mean, at this point, you can just basically be like, all right, stars are going back in. I am done and calling it a day. And that will be it. Like, this is just freaking super amazing how awesome this looks. And I want to keep the tutorials super easy and simple. So that is pretty much where we will leave it. There's so much more that you could do with this if you wanted to, but this is going to get you like 99% of the way there. Like, I would love to go into Photoshop and Camera Raw and tweak this and everything else, but instead, let's just put our stars back. We've got the stars image and star list. We've got the star exterminator math here that tells us how to actually do that. I always hit the wrong button. And boom, there is our image. I mean, does that thing just not look awesome or what? I almost think the stars look a little too small. I could probably blow those stars up a little bit more, but to me, that just looks awesome. I mean, if you focus in over here and look at the boogeyman, I mean, check that out. And his little compadre that he has here with him, there's just so many cool things. Like using the luminance layer, and I've seen other ways to do it. Polyman Astro has a couple different ways how he actually does that as well, using like local histogram equalization and different items and things like that. But man, look at that. And adding in the luminance, you know, gave us like just normal star colors. If we wanted to, you know, you could always go and play around with the stars and stuff. But, you know, if you don't want a bunch of, you know, yellow and weird colored stars, you can see that, you know, like this one here, it's picking up the color from the background and everything. There's plenty of that's going on inside of here, and like this just looks awesome. It's a super sweet image. It's pretty much one of the first. I've been practicing SHO processing here for a couple weeks with the data, and this is like my first go at it. Tried to make it as simple and easy as I could for you guys. Hopefully you will try this with your data or some SHO data that you can maybe get from somebody else out there, and this tutorial can kind of help you out. In the next one, maybe we'll keep on working on this, start over, do whatever, try some different things. But I'm going to be playing with this data here for quite some time because, you know, this is that Chile telescope data that is just freaking amazing. I can't believe how cool this looks. I'm actually kind of speechless. Is it perfect? By no means, but this is art and this is fun and this is a process. So that's going to do it, guys. Appreciate all of you. Love you guys. We will talk to you later. Peace.